The Inclusion Desk is presented as part of Move to Include, a partnership of WXXI Public Media and the Golisano Foundation.
Hi, I'm James Brown from WXXI News. Thank you for joining us for this Inclusion Desk Forum, the Autism Nature Trail. The Inclusion Desk is part of WXXI's Move to Include initiative, which encourages thoughtful discussion about issues related to inclusion. But first, it started with a coincidence. Then came a big idea. And now, nearly a decade later, photojournalist Max Schulte takes us to the Autism Nature Trail in Letchworth State Park.
I got a call from Elijah Kruger inside the Humphrey Nature Center who said the big trucks have arrived. And that's when I knew that this was absolutely real. And I got in the car and made the almost hour trip down, the whole way being very cocky and thinking, okay, naysayers, doubters, this is really happening now. So what do you think now? And I got out of the car, took my cell phone to take a picture of the staging area for construction, and inexplicably, I burst into tears. The emotion of 7 years of planning this amazing experience all caught up with me. People who have followed up several times.
That's great.
And said, we want to do this.
Look what you've done.
Well, no, it's everyone's done. It was you.
Well, you're the one that.
It was Ali's idea.
I'm going to say
that's where it all started.
Absolutely. When I had two completely separate conversations with two completely different friends, and both had grandsons in urban environments that reacted very positively to being in Letchworth specifically, and both with autism, that was the click that said there's something here.
What do you like about this trail? Do you like the rocks, the trees, the benches?
The trees.
The trees?
Honestly, when we would come to visit his grandmother on Silver Lake, he was inconsolable. He was screaming all the time. He didn't sleep. At that point, he didn't talk at all. And I thought one day, well, let's just bring him to Letchworth to maybe a quieter area and see if that calms him down. So we brought him to the Gibsonville Trail and walked him along the stream there, which is pretty flat. And he just calmed down, started throwing rocks, and was giggling and laughing. It was the first time I'd seen him happy the whole trip out here. That's where we discovered that Letchworth was really a good place for him.
The first time Lauren and I got together 6 or 7 years ago at lunch, and she had this sketch and an idea and a dream. And, you know, to be here today and see where that dream led, where two women having a conversation could turn into reality. And all of the hard work to raise the money for this and being able to keep it community oriented and to always keep in mind that this is the Autism Nature Trail, but it's here for everyone. And it is exciting to look around and see that piece of paper pop out and to feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere, and just the beauty and the nature and the creativity.
Do you want to see a swing?
Yes.
Do you want to go on a swing?
Yes.
Yeah, see?
The first conversation that we had with Dr. Temple Grandin of Colorado State University, who's probably the best known name in autism as an activist and as a person with autism, she gave us the tenets that we have held true for 7 years. She explained that we needed to be in deep nature and and resist the people who wanted us to build it closer to populations. You're so close to Rochester, you're so close to Buffalo, why don't you build this in a city park or a county park? We resisted that because we knew that if this was going to work, it needed to be a model for others, and it needed to be in one of the best state parks that we could possibly offer, which Letchworth certainly has earned that title again and again.
This feels great.
You know, I always was so hopeless before this project started, thinking that he was never going to really be able to do much with the world. And I look at this and I think, you know, my child starting at 7 years old started a movement that's changing the world. And I look at this trail and the progress and think of all the lives that his story is going to affect. And I just feel really proud of, you know, the fact that his story inspired something this wonderful to make nature accessible to so many types of people and to basically touch so many lives.
What we like to say about this project is, while other entities are making public places accessible, we are making an accessible place public. It's a mind shift, and it's a starting with the end in mind. Will others follow suit with that line of thinking instead of tinkering with something that exists and trying to make it compliant? Instead, start with a clean slate, a blank page. Yes, I think you'll see that not only in New York State parks, I think you're going to see it around the country. People in county or state parks are saying, what are you doing and how are you doing it? And how can we do something like it? The kind of collaboration and advice that we got all through the development is what makes this a unique, first of its kind, and we hope not last, experience in deep nature that is enjoyable and can be appreciated by everyone, regardless of age, regardless of ability.
Thank you. This is beautiful.
The left wall of this celebration station is a slate board. Mm-hmm. We'll have lots of chalk, and the idea is we're going to encourage visitors to leave their mark. Mm-hmm. Draw a picture, write a message, sign their name, make an X, draw a smiley face, anything.
Sign their name.
Exactly. But that idea of I was here, I have a voice, I matter.
This is my place.
This is my place.
Yep.
So,
I belong.
and that's where this.
I'd like to welcome both of our guests. Both played large roles in the growth from a dream to reality of this Autism Nature Trail. And as I will ask them both to describe themselves for members of our audience who are blind or visually impaired. I'm a Black man. I have curly hair. I'm wearing a fleece and a tie and a dress shirt. Joining me from Batavia is Lauren Penman. She's one of the driving forces behind the Autism Nature Trail. Welcome, Lauren. Please describe yourself.
Hi, James. My name is Lauren Penman. I am a retired educator. I am wearing my blue Autism Nature Trail shirt and my blue glasses that match.
Thank you, Lauren. And also joining me is Catherine Abida. She lives in Albany with her son, Ali. There would be no Autism Nature Trail without Ali's experience. Please describe yourself, Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Abida. I am a woman in my mid-40s with long, straight, strawberry blonde hair. I'm wearing a white turtleneck and a teal sweater.
How about we start with you, Catherine? How old is Ali now, and what is his diagnosis?
Ali turned 15 last month, and his diagnosis started out as severe autism. He's now considered more moderate, and just in September, he started in a public school with a special classroom there. He's never been in a public school before.
How's that going so far?
It's going great. His socialization has improved probably tenfold in the last month and a half since he started there. He's finally started having conversations. His sense of humor is coming out. He occasionally even gets a little sarcastic, like you would expect a 15-year-old to be. He's a different child.
That's fantastic to hear. That's certainly a long way from where you've described his path over the last decade or so. Can you take us into where he came from and how in his evolution?
Yeah. I first started suspecting Ali had autism around 18 months when he was eating some strawberry yogurt Cheerios at the time. And he put them perfectly evenly spaced in a line in a pattern, plain pink, plain pink, plain pink. So that was a red flag to me as somebody who had a background in special ed that something wasn't right. It wasn't until just after his third birthday that finally the doctors listened and he got his diagnosis of severe autism at that point. Some of the challenges that I had facing me with getting him diagnosed was he's always been pretty social, His eye contact has always been pretty good too. So especially, 12 years ago when I was trying to get him diagnosed and less was known about autism, it was extra challenging.
He was pretty young when you began bringing him into Deep Nature. Can you explain more about that rationale and what that was like?
Yeah, it started out when he was 3 with a trip to Stony Brook just to get him to play on the playground. At that point, his father and I were still together, and his grandmother was with us. We were trying to get him to stay on the playground, but he heard the rushing water not too far from the playground and started walking over toward the trail. And when he saw the rapids there, he just started to smile and he wanted to walk up the trail. So we took him up it, and he clearly enjoyed being around the waterfalls and the streams.
When you bring Ali, especially back when his diagnosis was severe, into parks like Letchworth, what were your concerns? Are they different than other parents?
Absolutely. At that point, he had no understanding of safety. If I opened the car door, I had to have a hand on him immediately so he didn't just run out into traffic or run over to the walls, provided there were walls. He would have just run right off the edge of a cliff if nobody were paying attention to him. So it was extremely difficult because of his lack of, understanding safety and realizing that he should stay with an adult.
That's got to be harrowing to go through. I don't have a child of my own. And just even thinking about that has to make your heart race. How did that evolve over the years?
Over the years, fortunately, the first school he was in, they dealt a lot with the safety and staying with, the adults, the staff and everything. So within a couple months of starting school, he had already gotten a lot better with that because that was one of the major things they worked on. At that point, he was in an all autism school, so they were very well equipped to handle some of the challenges that he was dealing with at the time. And they did a wonderful job just getting him to stay still long enough so an adult could, bring him to safety or keep him in a safe place.
What did at least you've made at least one visit to the Autism Nature Trail with me. Have you been back since?
I have not. It's kind of a long trip from Albany all the way out there. But I do plan to go next summer when we visit his grandmother, which we do every July.
In your experience there, at least on that first trip, what kind of amenities and environment would you describe it as?
The Autism Nature Trail, the things that I saw there that were positive were the trail was well marked. There weren't a whole lot of major hazards around it. It was a relatively flat area. There were no major pits. There were no ponds where somebody could fall in or easily get hurt. So that was something that definitely got my attention when we were visiting there.
Now, Lauren, much of that not having hazards around was an entirely intentional thing. As I understand, every element was well thought through for folks like Ali. Will you explain a bit more of that?
Sure. It started with a stone dust trail that is very natural looking. It hardens like concrete eventually over time. But in addition, it feels different underfoot. And if you were to leave the trail, you'd notice it. You'd feel the difference. And as Catherine described, it's well marked. There are 38 trail markers that are visible at almost every spot along the trail, in addition to the station markers, which are 6-foot tall stone edifices that tell you there's something coming up ahead and a decision to be made. Do you stay on the trail? Do you go explore the station? And something else that it came up as we were showing people near the conclusion of construction. They asked if we were going to move the dead trees that fall in the forest, and wondered about it looking a little messy. And of course, trees fall in the forest. They provide habitat for small animals. They reforest the forest. but they also provided for us a natural barrier. And you'll see on the completed trail that we've even taken some fallen trees and large branches and purposely moved them to places where it might look a little open, where it might look like you could leave the trail and head deeper into the woods. And things like invasive species that others might have thought were not that great to have along a footpath, we've left barberry there because you only have to run through it once and you will not want to do it again. So that has been very conscious to make sure it stays natural looking. It's certainly ecologically sound, and it has that natural barrier that prevents elopement.
Lauren, you're on the trail a lot. And for the last year or so, can you explain to us what's your role day to day? What's it like to drive all the way from Batavia to Letchworth, and what do you do?
Well, it's a beautiful drive, first of all, and very relaxing. And I'm always excited to get there. Since we've been open, certainly I've met some of the most fascinating people, some who've happened upon the trail, some who have come a long way specifically for it. Some have been camping in Letchworth or dining at the Glen Iris Inn and just want to know what it's about. In this juncture, in the month of October, there's been a lot of fine tuning. We're maintaining it meticulously. There's a lot of leaves that we try to blow off the trail so that they don't get wet and get slippery. We maintain things like the sensory station so that there are fresh exhibits. We have a small container that has all kinds of nuts that you can find along the trail that has become a squirrel buffet if we don't get filled up. That's become a daily responsibility. And keeping the path neat. Our visitors have been wonderful. They've understood that it is a carry-in, carry-out park. And to that end, if they're coming in with water bottles or granola bars, they leave with their finished water bottles and granola wrappers. We pick up virtually no garbage along the trail. Everyone is very supportive of the cleanliness of it. And there hasn't been any kind of theft or vandalism, which is something we watch for. And then we just watch for things like has a branch fallen down and obscured the trail at all. We don't want there to be any impediment to moving safely and predictably along every stop of the trail.
Squirrel buffet. I can't get that out of my head. I'm trying to envision what this would be like.
It's a squirrel sitting in a box, double-fisted, eating nuts.
That'll stick with me for a while. One of my favorite parts of this story is the concept of the aunt-aunts. Can you tell me a little bit how you met Gail Cerventi and Susan Herrnstein and their roles in all of this?
We were all acquainted, but we were not friends. We did not hang out together. But I happened to be talking to Susan Herrnstein just a couple of weeks after my initial conversation with Ali's grandmother. And she had told me about Catherine and Ali's reaction to Letchworth. And in passing, I mentioned it to Susan, who had a very similar story about her grandson with autism who lives in New York City. And that's when the two of us set out on this journey to answer the question, why Letchworth, really? It seemed like there was something very special about that park. And found some research about negative ions in nature and pine forests and moving water, all coming together in Letchworth. And when we found that there was something to the idea that all brains may react positively, we thought, well, what if it's something even more in terms of a reaction on the autistic brain. So taking those stories to Dr. Temple Grandin, she was excited about the concept, wasn't aware of anything that was a true autism nature trail anywhere in the country, gave us some really good parameters. And that's when we knew we needed someone with the expertise of Gail Cerventi, who is a retired speech and language pathologist. And she hooked us up with an advisory panel, all volunteers, about 17 academics and practitioners from the world of speech and language, occupational and physical therapy, autism experts, special educators, parents and grandparents, and school administrators and counselors and social workers. It was an amazing panel of these volunteers who met for about 18 months and provided input. And Susan and Gail and I began to spend lots and lots of time together working on this. And first of all, proposing it to New York State. You don't just walk into Letchworth and say, I think we'll build a trail. There was some steps to take there. And then, of course, we were responsible for all of the fundraising. We understood that state parks are strapped. They are trying to maintain increased interest and attendance in parks with not much of an increase or a decrease in operating funds. So we agreed. We said, this is important. We'll raise the funds. And the three of us became joined at the hip. And we were dubbed the aunts. It was better than grandmothers. And we persevered. And as of today, we've raised $3.4 million privately. There's no municipal, state, or federal funds at all in that amount of money.
Susan died in September.
She did.
A month before the trail opened.
Yeah, we opened October 1st, and Susan succumbed to complications from COVID on September 5th. But she was with us October 1st, and we dedicated the trail in her name. Her family name, and the one most well-known in Western New York, is Gownlock. So the trail has been named for Susan Gownlock and family.
You could certainly see her name, and I'm assuming names of her family members all over the park, especially where the bricks are laid out. Can you tell us a bit of how that happened?
Yes, well, she has 8 grandchildren, and she wanted to be sure each of them had a place in the park. And the Sunshine Slope is named for her grandson Julian, who was also part of the inspiration for the trail. So we've made sure that there will be a lasting effect, not only by Susan but by all members of her family.
Did she ever get down to see it under construction?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, she got to see it about the time that you were last there, James. So and you know, when people say, what a shame she didn't get to see the finished product, she did. She had seen it in her mind for 7 years, maybe more than anyone. She had a vision of what this should be like and directed us all along the way. When what our project engineer Eric Bach called the fussy details, those were Susan's fussy details, and we paid attention to every one of them, and it's paid off huge dividends.
And for those who don't know, I visited right before the 4th of July,
Right.
For the first time. So not long ago, I and photojournalist Max Schulte went back to the trail, and we met a few people who share their thoughts and experiences.
So we came here for the first time last week with their older brother, who's 5, who is on the spectrum. And we spent about an hour and a half here just exploring the different parts, and we enjoyed it so much we came back with just them two when Big Brother was in school. What do you like best? Do you like the swings? Do you like the music?
I love the music.
Yeah. What about you, Cece?
I like the scenes.
The swings?
Yeah.
That's pretty fun, huh? So having the ant trail here with his brother being on the spectrum is just, there's direct resources for this. So you can go inside and you can get some maybe ideas that you have never thought of before, as far as sensory play ideas, or resources to connect to other families and that sort of thing.
Look at those tall trees, guys.
You like the tall trees?
What
about the leaves?
Look at those big trees, and they are moving.
We love coming here as a family in the autumn just for the leaves, and we like seeing the waterfalls and making sure that the boys get out in nature and really kind of understand, okay, there's more than just a living room. Come out here and have fun on the trails.
I used to teach special education, so I heard about it through different things that I follow, so I wanted to come and see what it was all about. I like it. It's fun. It's easy to walk. It's very interactive. Can't wait to see the rest of it.
Well, we're here at Let Tours probably at least 3 times a week, so we do all the trails all the time, and then this particular trail, it's great for them because they can stop and take breaks. So there's the sensory part where they can look at all the bones and all of the gemstones and different elements of the forest. It's right there, packed into one spot. And then the swings and the music, it's just every 10 minutes there's something different for them to do versus just meandering through the trail and trying to find different things. We like to do the lower falls a lot, but there's certain times a year with when you have a child on the spectrum, it's just too difficult, right? So there's too much mud, or there's too much mist, or there's too many people. And so all those things can factor into it. And with a trail like this, it's nice, it's level, there's not a lot of people here, and so it's really just a nice place to just calmly go and enjoy nature versus maybe some other sites in the park. You can just go and have fun, and you don't have to worry about advanced trails. It's just an easy trail. Anybody can do this trail, even in a wheelchair. So that's what we like about it.
As I watched that video, I have to wonder, Catherine and Lauren, either of you, please answer. Is there anything you'd like to see added? Anything that wasn't there, or that you would like to see built on top of what exists now?
I didn't see anything that I thought could be added. Of course, if somebody came up with a wonderful idea of something that could be added, I would certainly go with it. But I felt like everything had been thought of and included in the trail.
I think I would agree with Catherine. I think we wanted to have lots of choice, but not an overwhelmingly large number of choices so that it became too much. The 1 mile loop seems to be just about right. We've had visitors as young as a couple of weeks old, strapped to a parent. And I had a lovely walk with a soon-to-be 95-year-old woman from Rochester who thought it was just a delightful way to spend an hour at Let Tours State Park. So I think we hit it right. Know that we had 7 years to figure it out, and that I think that was key. And we really were blazing a new trail, pun intended, because there was no model for us to follow. So there was some trial and error on paper, but the fact that we were able to take a vision in 3 women's heads and get it into sketches, which turned into a schematic design approved by the state, which turned into construction drawings by Trowbridge Wolfe Michaels at Ithaca, which turned into construction by Titan Development of Gasport, and you got what we got, and it looks just like we imagined. I'm not sure any project ever turns out that way. So we're feeling very, very lucky to have found all the right partners, all the right incentives, all the right people all along the way.
Just to broaden this discussion out a bit, I was thinking about accessibility and acceptance for kids on the autistic spectrum. And yeah, Lauren, as a longtime educator, and Catherine as a mom, how are we doing? Are things better or worse today than in the past?
as a parent, I can say that things have certainly gotten better during Ali's lifetime. Autism has become much more prevalent, but I have also seen a lot more understanding with people in the community that that kid might not just be a result of bad parenting. There might actually be a problem. So back when Ali was younger, I was mostly treated just like a terrible parent, which was very traumatic for me because I was already dealing with his challenges and some of my own challenges at the time, which I'm good with now. But it was extremely difficult. They were just kicking me when I was already down, trying to deal with an overwhelming situation, and they were making it worse. Now, people in the community where I live now, a lot of them know Ali. He has a friend who's on the autism spectrum as well, who lives a few blocks from here. I've become friends with his family, this kid's dad, and just this isn't something that I would have seen, 10 to 12 years ago. People were far more judgmental about it back then. And you just didn't feel that, the community reaching out to help at all.
I think Catherine's absolutely spot on. We've seen it just in the 7 years of the development of the trail. I think we've seen much more awareness. Autism sometimes is known as an invisible disability. And I think there is just a lot more understanding. We need to get to that point of total inclusion, and we're not there yet. While the outlook is good, we have a long way to go. The fact that the Autism Nature Trail at Letchworth State Park is the only trail like it right now in the country is indicative of the idea that there's always room for growth, and certainly in this realm.
Do we know when the trail will close for this season?
That the park and many of its amenities close on Sunday, October 31st. The services, the snack bars and hospitality all shuts down for the season. The Humphrey Nature Center goes to 5-day a week instead of 7-day a week operations. And that all important gate fee is no longer collected. So getting into the park is free. Soon, though, 2 of the 4 entrances to the park will close for the winter because snow makes it very dangerous to traverse some of the roads inside the park. So we're gonna stay open as long as the weather allows us. And when I say open, I mean with all of the stations fully equipped. But at some point, we're going to want to cover the musical instruments and stop feeding the squirrels and take in some things for the long winter. But the trail will still be there. The stations may be inaccessible. The trail will be lovely for walking or snowshoeing or cross-country skiing. And again, a perfect 1-mile loop with the end at the beginning, a place to park. And we hope people will feel comfortable there year round.
Any closing thoughts, Catherine, Lauren?
I have a closing thought on this. I was really happy to see the mother in the one video that was shown who brought her children who are neurotypical to the trail without their older sibling there. And that right there shows how good this trail is, that it is being enjoyed by everybody. Another thing I noticed about the trail when I visited over the summer is I've had some balance issues in my life. And when I saw the areas where there were the rocks that you could walk on or the tree stumps that you could walk on, I was thinking 10 years ago when I was having problems with my balance, that would have been a really good way to get my legs back up and running for longer hikes. So for kids, a lot of kids with autism have balance issues, and that's something that really got my attention, is that if they succeed on those parts of the trail, they're probably ready to do some of the more, difficult trails where there might be rocks or tree roots to climb over. I thought that was kind of a good way to introduce them to obstacles that might be along the more mainstream paths.
That playful path, Catherine, that you're mentioning has been extremely popular. And what's been particularly helpful is having our partners with Camp Puzzle Piece, our programming partners, able to point out the benefits, and without necessarily forcing people to participate, mentioning just what you said. This is great for balance, and we've had some older visitors who have found it fun, but a little therapeutic at the same time. So there's having staff along the trail has helped point out some things. We like to give guided tours when we can, and we hope to be starting a winter training. It could be video, it could be live. We're looking at all of the options so that we can let parents and teachers and agency leaders know how to really optimize the trail experience and make choices that are best for their individual situations, their families, their students, their clients. So that will continue. And to that end, we continue to fundraise so that we can meet our budget goal of $3.7 million. It's a big number, and we're still $300,000 away, which is small in comparison to what we've made. But I'm ready to retire from fundraising and enjoy the fruits of the trail.
That does beg one question. Just stepping back, your answer. The role of Camp Puzzle Piece and the role of the Perry School District. Can you flesh those ideas out a bit?
Yes, absolutely. Camp Puzzle Piece's expertise is working with families living with a disability outdoors. And every summer they have an Adirondack summer camp where families go and camp in the Adirondacks for 3 nights and 4 days. And these are families who say, are you kidding? I can't get my kid through Wegmans, and you want me to take him to the Adirondacks? And Jen Hackett, the executive director, consistently says, your child can't do it yet. By the time we work through the school year, or maybe 2 school years, when summer comes, you will be ready. And their expertise in working with special programming and families on the trail has been absolutely invaluable. And they are the people that Dr. Grandin told us to look for: people with expertise in autism and related disabilities, and people who love the outdoors. And the staff from Camp Puzzle Piece checks all those boxes. And then the Perry Central School District is our institutional partner. They have been absolutely visionary in what they believe will be very beneficial for their students. The technology students are doing drone photography and preparing a map of the trail that will be a 3D relief map. They're providing trail tours on YouTube with this video when they're finished with it. There is programming for their special education classes that will be second to none, and science curriculum. There's amazing service learning and community service opportunities for their students. And they have hired a sensory destination coordinator in Brittany Johnson, who is working with all of the entities, including volunteers and students, to make best use of the trail and keep it healthy and maintained meticulously forever. This will be an ongoing process to be sure that this trail is kept safe and predictable and enjoyable for generations.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Catherine. That's all for this edition of WXXI's Inclusion Desk Forum. The WXXI Inclusion Desk is part of the Move to Include, a partnership to encourage thoughtful discussion about issues related to inclusion. I'm James Brown, and for all of us at WXXI News, be well.
The Inclusion Desk is presented as part of Move to Include, a partnership of WXXI Public Media and the Golisano Foundation.